and thus become his own ego, his own worst nightmare. Darla scampered away in the background, the scent of a whore and the shameful walk as if a dog with her tail between her legs, for she knew what she had become and what she truly was. There is still a glimmer of potential left, even in these dimensions of which I speak, within even the most cursed of peoples, but the pain they must choose leaves only Stellar and a few others, those clergy who are culminated as the potentials diminish. In some cases, Stellar may have eliminated or created more offshoots. In this purity, in his protective obedience to self, he could see full well what had taken place. As the eye, produced by the heart machine nearest them, looked down, became a scattered cloud of purple haze, by Stellar's simply looking up. The helicopters, which were also jets, in the event that Stellar may decide to send the rotors into their own directions, could at least be used to escape as a jet, or even the boosts manufactured below gave the pilots and crew a little more security, for they did not know nor could they fathom Stellar's power, and Stellar was not allowed to acknowledge it, else he would become even greater than Blackjack 21, whom he had defeated many times, as many do, but he was brought back daily, moment to moment, sometimes in a long slumber, but the fields of energy existed somewhere in some time, and the time when he was not was that original place before original sin, which even Stellar was just a victim to. He did not fight and hid within Bill, now fully aware of his power. Stellar shrunk the potentials here created, and thus created an event within Bill. Stellar spun in his own space within Bill, a new molecule, a small universe where Stellar could meditate. He spun, he went back to his place, and in this he found counsel. The 13, including he, on the very outer banks of Orion sat with him, each spun in their own spheres, and they were known as the nine that were the 13. There were those from previous dimensions, no longer in existence, which Stellar remembers, which acted as one, and Stellar was the 13th, the transient one. Pontreus spoke. "Stellar, what have you done? The potential did not exist, yet somehow in your selfless heroic act have reduced countless potentials by rectifying this one. I nearly fear that you may either suffer with great magnitude here, or be propelled to a space-time far too advanced for us to have seen or calculated." Suddenly they spoke, the three from a familiar voice. It was he, it was Sam Ra, Stellar's other self. But how could this be? If he were the 13th, the transient one, and there sat the Buddha, and near him Jesus, the most holy. And yet, how could Stellar, the rebel, the defiant one, the outcast of this bunch, even next, the demon god himself, Pontreus, who was wiped clean by the Lord, for there must be one in the order to each, which to save the multitude of their like. And even demons had a chance, though it was slight, for ascension. Some would, in the final war, pay a hefty price, a painful lesson indeed. We have saved the fabric of what you have taught us, Stellar. Do you not remember? And Stellar answered, I remember you, dear ones. There were 8 holy ones, and there were 4, which were 2, and with Samra 5, and the 5 in motion were 6, and with 6 there were 7, and with 7 there is 8, and with 8 there sits the transient one, and they felt as one. He only sits with us until you are physically here. I mean to say when you become one. Sam Ra, the Utes spoke together from their shared cloud. One was the back, one was the front, as they sat in lotus with their backs against one another, yet with each spin a pose they had been in. From rock Bodhi, the mind of Bodhi was with them. They had become each of the 13 poses, for which I have in depth many times explained in esoteric quality of the arrivement of the 13. That is, in fact, the only principle-based fact, which is the answer, which is the beginning, and the beginning of the end. Suddenly a flash came before Stellar, and he recounted this from prior dimensional writings. Samra-lets glowed with a blue and green hue, while in their presence, and when he was in their presence, he asked to be referred to as 11, or the 11th. Yet at times of worship, which they did alone, the 11th, which included 3 Ute type Itkas, 3 Ray type Itkas, 2 or 4 Mifa Itkas, which were 2 groups of twins who when in ceremony paralleled one another, this leaving spheres which spun between them, taking up the void from each their view. 1 red sphere to the bottom right, 1 green sphere to the bottom left, 1 purple sphere to the upper right, 1 blue sphere to the upper